Fractions and decimals. I can convert between fractions and decimals. So I'm going to start with a quick review here. So write the line down and write the word review. Number one, I want you to round this number to the nearest 10 thousandths. Number two, find the greatest common factor and least common multiple of 25 and 45. Stop the video now and do this in your notebook. When you're done, come back and check. All right, let's take a look. The 10 thousandths place. So we have the tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000. So the 2 is going to tell the 6 what to do, which in this case is stay the same. So we end up with 0.8476. If that 2 was higher than 5, then that 6 would round up to a 7. All right, let's find the GCF and the LCM. So we make our factor trees. Now the step lots of you don't want to do is write them out in their expanded form. And let's make our Venn diagram. So what do they have in common? They both have a 5 in common. That goes in the middle. 25 has an extra 5. 45 has two extra 3s. So my GCF would be 25. I'm sorry, would be 5 because there's just one 5 in the middle. My LCM would be I have to times the 5 times the 5 times the 3 times the 3, and I get 225. All right, so let's write rational numbers. That's the first thing we're going to look at today. What are rational numbers? So there's really 4 kinds we're going to look at. The first kind is your counting numbers. Those were the first things you were able to do when you first learned about numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, and your parents were really excited when you could get to 10. Second are called whole numbers. This is where the 0 comes in. So when you have 0 and all of those counting numbers, sometimes called natural numbers, then you have whole numbers. The third kind are integers. This is where you add the negative, the positive, and the 0. And lastly, then you have rational numbers. Those are your decimals and fractions. So what I want you to do is draw a little circle. We're going to look at these. This is your counting numbers, or those are natural numbers. Now, what ends up happening is inside, you're going to find your whole numbers. So your whole numbers include everything inside, which is those counting numbers. Then you have your integers, which would include your whole numbers and your counting numbers. And lastly, we have our rational numbers, which include the integers, the whole numbers, and the counting numbers. Eventually, we're going to learn about irrational numbers. They are outside because they're not rational, they're irrational. These would be numbers that would go on forever, and we'll take a look at those later. So let's write decimal to fractions. Hopefully this is a little bit of review. How you write how you say it. It's the easiest way to remember how to do this. So if I write down 0.15, how would you say that? Well, you would say that as 15 hundredths. And then I just simplify. What can go into 15? That also can go into 100. Well, 5 can. So that's 3 20ths. So 1.15 or 15 hundredths is the same as the fraction 3 20ths. How would you say this? You would say it as 2 tenths. Simplify it, which would give you 1/5. 1/5 and 2 tenths are the same. I want you to do these next 2. Stop the video now. When you are done, check your answer. All right, let's take a look. The decimal point means it's the whole number. So 2 and 345 thousandths. This is where, yes, you may use a calculator. What can go into both of them? I'm going to start with 5. Which would give me 2 and 69 over 200. Now, is there anything that can go into both of them? Well, 2 can't. 3 could go into this one, but 3 can't not go into 200. 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, nope. So I think we're good. All right, so let's look at the bottom one. We have 10 hundredths, thousandths, so I have 8 thousandths. Again, I know 2 could go in there, so it'd be 5 hundredths. 2 could go in there, again, it's 2 and 250. So 8 thousandths is the same fraction as 2 over 250. All right, let's go the other way, a fraction to a decimal. And there's 2 ways to do this. The first method is just to get our denominator to either be a 10, 100, or 1,000. So that works nice. So if we look at 3/5, that's easy. How did I go from 5 to 10? Well, I times 2. So take the top times 2 and I would have 6/10. Well, 6/10 as a decimal is 0.6. So 6 and in the tenths place. So go ahead and try these two. Get them to be 10, 100, or thousandths. Okay, let's take a look. Well, 25 can't go to 10, but it can go to 100 by timesing 4. So 6 times 4 is 24. So now I have 24 and I need it in the hundredth spot. So tenths, hundredths it is. So it's 0.24. 3/4, some of you may know, but it's just we can't get it to 10, so we have to go to 100. Well, I times by 25, so 3 times is 75. So it'd be 75 hundredths. The second method is to divide the fraction. So when you have 3/4, my question to you is it 3 dividing into 4 or 4 dividing into 3? It's really asking how many 4s go into 3, so it's this one. The hard part is on a calculator, it's backwards. When you type it into a calculator, you do type it in top to bottom. 3 divide 4. So this is the correct way to write it, but this is the correct way to put it into a calculator. So let's put some in because you can't make these to 10, 100, or 1,000. So we type in our calculator 2 divide 3. When you type that in, you get 0.66666 and it goes on forever. So we call this repeating. 0.6 and you put that line over the top which tells you it repeats. Go ahead and do 1/6. When you type 1 divide 6 in your calculator, you get 0.16666. So does the 1 repeat or the 6? The 6 does. You may notice the 7 on the end. The 7 on the end basically is your calculator's running out of room and it's called truncating. It just rounds it. But really it's still just a 6 that's going on forever. So in this case, this would equal 0.16, and over the 6 only is where you'd have that repeating sign. So these are different kinds of decimals. The ones that terminate are the ones we're used to. Terminate means, and you need these 2 vocabulary words, is the decimal that stops. So if you type into your calculator 3/8, all of a sudden my support's off. If you type into your calculator 3/8, you will get 0.375. That terminates, it stops. But just like we saw in the examples before, a repeating decimal will go on forever, but it repeats. It goes on forever, but repeats. So I want you to do 1/11. You will notice in your calculator you get 0.090909091. Again, it's just rounding it because it doesn't fit in the calculator. So if we look at this, really what's repeating is 0.9. So there's where my repeating happens. It's a lot easier if you have some of your fractions just memorized. So for instance, 1/2. What would 1/2 be as a decimal? It's 0.5. Okay? 1/3. These are a little trickier. Well, 1/3 is 0.3 repeating. 2/3 would then be, it's doubling it, so it's 0.6 repeating. The fourths, if you cut $1 into 4 parts, 1/4 would be 0.25. 2/4 would be 0.5 or 50 cents. 3/4 would be 75 cents. The fifths, cut it into tenths. The nice part is to get to 10, you would just double it. So you're just doubling your top. So 1/10 would be 0.2. 1/5 would be 0.2. 2/5 would be 0.4. 3/5 would be 0.6. 4/5 would be 0.8. And last, my favorite, the ninths. The ninths are extremely close to the tenths. And we know when we're in the tenths, like 3/10, we just read it as 0.3, but we're not quite there. So what ends up happening is this is just 0.1. It's not really 1/10, it's almost there, so it's repeating. This is 0.2. It's not quite at 0.2, so it's just repeating. If you want to, try to type some into your calculator to see. So this would be 0.3 repeating because it's not quite to this 0.3. So this would be 0.4 repeating, 0.5 repeating, 0.6 repeating, 0.7 repeating, and 0.8 repeating. All right, you can go ahead and begin your homework.